Welcome. My name is Amy Lillard. I'm the Executive Director of Washington Filmworks. We have been working very hard at Filmworks to author and publish the first annual report on the state of Washington's film industry. And tonight, we are here to give you a little sneak peek at that. It actually hasn't been published. We figured since you are the community that we work with and work for, you deserved a sneak peek before anyone else. But before we actually dive into the presentation tonight, I wanted to take a minute and remind everyone that Washington Filmworks had the absolute pleasure of producing the Fly Filmmaking Challenge with SIF this year. We love this partnership because SIF is about exhibition and we are about facilitating production. And I'm going to invite Stephanie Malone from KCTS to invite you to a special something something.
Thanks, Amy. KCTS is a proud supporter of independent film, from shows that you guys have known for years, like POV and Independent Lens, to things like Real Northwest that showcases independent local filmmakers. It was great pleasure that we were one of the sponsors of the Fly Films this year. So we are hosting a special event tomorrow night from 7 to 9 p.m. at KCTS, where we're going to show all of the Fly films. The Fly filmmakers will be there. Amy will be there. And it's being hosted by the wonderful, talented Warren Etheridge, so it should be a ball. There's free wine and stuff, too. There are limited seats because we are RSVPing, and so if you're interested, I'm hanging out tonight, and please come up to me later, and I will give you one of my cards and make sure that you get on the list tomorrow night. So thank you very much. Thanks, Amy.
Y'all heard that right? Free wine and free. Yeah. So Amy Enzer is one of our Fly filmmakers, as is Ben Andrews. So I also wanted to make one other quick announcement about, you know, us at Washington Filmworks. We like you to be politically active. And so on Monday, June 3rd at Town Hall, there is a mayoral forum where you can meet all of the candidates for mayor who are critical to your success as a filmmaker in the city. So we encourage you to attend that event. It is a free event. You do have to RSVP, though. So if you go to townhall.org, is that right? You can RSVP to go to that event, and we encourage you to do so. But let's dig in. This is a new presentation for me, and I have to multitask. I've got these, I've got this, and I've got a little thing here. So bear with me as we get down to it. So we titled this presentation Information is Power because we learned a heck of a lot through this process. We did the first annual jobs survey. We did a bunch of research and homework. We have the numbers from the incentive program. We learned a lot, and we think that information is power. So I'm going to... That's not what was supposed to happen, but we're going to go with it. So what is Washington Filmworks? You know, we do a variety of things for this community, but if you look at what we do, we are the first point of contact for most filmmakers that come into Washington State. We integrated the film office in 2009, and we have 20 years of production resources. I'm going to embarrass Chris Carnes in the back. She's our production services coordinator. She knows more about permitting and locations and resources in the state than probably anyone in this room. But she's a wonderful resource. She's on staff with us. She's available to help you with those things. And in addition, of course, we administer and manage the state film incentive program, which we have done since 2006. So if you get to what the core of what we do is, it is our core mission is jobs and dollars. And you're going to hear this repeatedly tonight as it is in the annual report as well. Our job is to figure out how to keep you working and how to bring more money to the state, whether that's you as a filmmaker bringing in projects and having them financed and coming here to shoot, or bringing productions from out of town. We like to steal Hollywood's money, as we like to say. We are all about how do we keep you working and how do we bring money into the economy. That's our mission. It's not working. So I'm going to keep going, though. So if you look, why do we care about motion picture production? And this is in the report as well. If you look at what that represents, we did a bunch of research and studying and, investigating for the annual report to justify why Washington State should invest in the film industry. The MPAA released a study that says that we support, as an industry nationwide, 2.1 million jobs. And then in addition, as you look at what's going to happen over the next 4 years, which is what we really care about at Washington Filmworks because we sunset in 2017, we're going to see a huge amount of growth to the tune of $500 billion. I love it that PricewaterhouseCoopers is doing all the homework and research for us, spending millions of dollars on studies. But there's a tremendous amount of money and job opportunities in the film industry. So that's why we care. Motion picture at Washington Filmworks means if you have a camera in your hand, if you are filming footage, whether that's a commercial, whether that's a film, whether that's an interactive media project, that's what we care about. Because we know that if you're filming something, that's how we get our cast and crew employed. But here's the reality. So I love this graphic, and we put it in the annual report because it's a really nice narrative about the competitive environment in which we live. This is a graphic from Cast and Crew, and it basically outlines all of the states in the United States that have incentive programs in place. Washington is one of 39 states across the country that have an incentive. That means, by definition, if you are a producer and a business person in the film industry, you are competing and you are considering all other jurisdictions. So there are 39 states across the country, and I would say that the incentive continues to be the best tool that we have to win motion picture business. If you are a filmmaker, if you are a producer, you have to go to a state with a competitive incentive, because if you don't, you're a bad business person. So, at the end of the day, Washington is the 5th smallest incentive program in the country. So, if you look, right, that doesn't look so good. But we're small but powerful. And we talk a lot about this in the report. I'm going to just briefly chat about what you see up on the screen. Since we launched the program in 2007, we've seen 86 projects come through the program. Those projects have spent $77.5 million directly in our economy. You can see the breakdown right there. $35 million to people like you in the room, and other $42 million with Washington-based businesses. That's a very compelling statistic. In addition, when you look at the trickle-down and the impact of film in our economy statewide, we have what is called a multiplier. Who knows what a multiplier is? Should I spend? I love it. I spend too much time in Olympia. Multipliers is the trickle-down, right? If you spend money, let's just say you are a filmmaker, you go to a restaurant, you're spending your per diem, and you're tipping the waiter. The waiter goes out and spends that money in the economy. It trickles down in so many ways that impact the economy in a much bigger way. We've had over $213 million of economic impact since we launched the program in February of 2007. It's impressive. We've created over 5,000 jobs. So that's 5,000 jobs on set, whether that's cast or crew, and that is only, as a reminder, through the incentive program. So as we look at the landscape right now, we have 2 production centers. The organization in general, we have Spokane and Seattle. Both are very vibrant film centers. In Seattle, we continue to concentrate significant effort and time and energy into developing the opportunity to support commercial work, and then also to support our local filmmakers. Those are what we call, and I'm going to dazzle you with a bureaucratic phrase called core competencies. Those are the 2 sectors in Seattle we're specifically interested in growing. We know from this community that y'all like to work on commercials because they pay really well. We also know that we have a bunch of really talented up-and-coming filmmakers who are hitting the national scene, who are coming up through the ranks, and we want to support those people as well. In Spokane, it's a little different. You know, we support a lot of the direct-to-DVD work, a lot of the smaller independent film work over there, because that's the work that they like to work on. Again, what we do is we listen to you as a community, and we try to react to that to create opportunities for you to work on things that you want to work on. In addition, when you look at the small but powerful concept, I think Filmworks has done a good job, you know, in a very competitive marketplace of really creating a program that is marketable to independent films. Who in the room has heard me say cash back in 30 days? You should be in my office, because when you're in my entire staff, like I hear it all the time. Cash back in 30 days makes us incredibly marketable, because if you go to Michigan, Michigan takes years to get money back. You know, our mantra here, we're always smart, we're always careful, but if you're proving to us that you're spending money in the state, our goal is to get you money in your hands in 30 days. So we're creating a program that makes this marketable. So if we all move forward with the idea that the incentive is the best tool that we have, and we all know that we want more money in the fund because we have $3.5 million a year and we all want more money in the fund, what do we need to do? We need to tell our story better. We need people to understand the important impact that our jobs and the money that we bring in doing motion picture production has on the statewide economy. This is my favorite slide. Oh, look, it's working. It's like drama. Okay. So what you're seeing here is a graphic that we included in the annual report. I'm going to geek out on you. I'm going to dazzle you with data. Julie Damon, who's our Director of Operations and Finance, who isn't here tonight, she's not feeling well, she did this. And I love it, because what it does, we took all of the 2012 projects that we funded. We took every line item in every budget, and we found how the government defines their way of doing business. What you're seeing here is the way that when the state looks at our industry, where they see the impact. The most important part, which is in red, the motion picture industry. So the money in the motion picture industry, 2%. So when the state is pulling up data and looking at the impact of our industry, they're seeing 2% of the $77.5 million that we've brought in, they're seeing 2% of that. If you don't understand our impact, why would you invest in us, right? So the annual report goes a long way to telling this story, because this story is so important. The next thing that I love, it's not working. 1,629 jobs. There were 500 people in the industry that took the first annual, the job survey that we put out, right? The state, when you pull up how many people work in the film industry, because they're looking at all of those different codes, what they say at the Employment Securities Department is that we only create 1,600 jobs, right? So we have to tell our story better. Why are our jobs important? How do we impact the economy? In addition, I don't know, stand by. As I said earlier, we run the state film office. You know, it's very easy to think that the incentive program, it's very easy to think that the incentive program is all of the work happening in Washington State. Well, gosh, we all know that that's not the case, because I know all of you and I know you're working on a variety of different things. So what we started doing in the film office division is we started tracking who's calling and what are they saying. Between March and December of 2010, we had 200 and 70 inquiries that were non-incentive related. So most of the incentive projects come into me, but if they're calling about how do I permit in Snoqualmie, they're generally talking to Chris Carnes. We had 270 inquiries, which were not incentive related. In following up with them, 22% of them ended up filming in Washington, and that ended up to be $2 million in direct spending in our economy. And those are only the ones that we're aware of. What is very interesting about what we do is in the state film office, we service all kinds of people, whether that's a web series, whether that's a commercial, whether that's pick anything, student filmmakers. We have such a diversity of people that call our office, and we all know that people in this industry are completing these projects. So only 33% of the inquiries that came into our office through the film office division were actually directly related to commercials and feature film work. Stills, if you're doing a magazine spread, great work. Uses location managers, production designers, costumes, video games, location managers, voiceover work. What we're learning and what we have learned through this process, which is important, is that our industry supports the creative industries of Washington State. So we're going to talk a little bit about the survey. That's exactly what I just said. Film workers support all creative industries in the state. And so who took the survey? Clearly more than 1,629 people in the state of Washington working in the film industry. Here's what we learned. Everyone in the film industry, if you want to have a career in the film industry, you are going to use your skill sets to support other creative industries. Not up there on the slide is 37% of you also worked in the theater. 37% worked in the theater, 33% worked in music, and 26% worked in fine arts. We, as a creative industry, support the creative economy. That gives us great value, right? Without our film industry, other creative industries suffer. So where'd my little clicker go? Okay. The future of film. Where are we going? So, we at Washington Filmworks, for those of you that remember the 2011 session, we went in and we asked for, I think, $8 million a year with $1 million increase year over year. We all want more money in the incentive, and we continue to do what we do on a daily basis so that we can get there. So that's important. It's also important that as the film industry continues to shift and new models come up in production related to content creation, how do we keep you in this room working? Whether that's on a webisode, whether that's on an interactive game, whether, whatever digital distribution paradigms exist, how do we get you to work? And how do we position Washington to get that work? And then finally, you will, as an industry, continue to work in a diversity of ways. Again, what we learned, the major message that we got from the survey, from the job survey was, yeah, we'd like to work in film, we'd like to work in film more, but we still continue to work in all of these other creative industries. Working towards the future. What's our role? I think the resounding thing that we want to do at Washington Filmworks is to continue to reiterate and create, an awareness about the jobs and dollars that we as an industry bring to the state, whether it's incentive projects, whether it's non-incentive projects, whether, what do we do as an industry and why is film important to the state of Washington? We're going to continue to do that through the annual report. We learned a lot this first time. I think that as we continue to author this report annually, we're going to refine it. It's going to get better. I also know that we could certainly craft those questions on the job survey a lot better because we got some interesting answers. What is our job at Washington Filmworks? We want to continue to attract new business. How are we doing that? We are partnering with the city of Seattle, for example. We understand from this community that y'all like commercials. And so we are partnering with the city of Seattle to what we call internally develop and launch the commercial business development plan. How do we bring more people here who aren't working? And how do we market the region as a destination for commercial work? So we're working on that now. How can we support this community and foster new ideas? We just launched this past year the Innovation Lab. Had 2 cycles. One was film and one was around innovation, which was the intersection of storytelling and technology. And that means multi-platform storytelling. How are you telling your story in different environments and paradigms, if you will? And so that is one of the ways that we will continue to support this community and foster new ideas. What can you do? Take the job survey, because there's not enough hands up in this room. We're going to work on the questions. They're going to be better next year. But we also want you to participate because knowledge is power. Information is power. The more people that take it, the better the data and the better off we are. Tell us what you're working on. One of the things that we implemented, knowing that it's very easy to think that the incentive is all of the work happening in the motion picture industry. We partnered with the city of Seattle, for example. We are now collecting data about how many people are being permitted, how many people are working in those projects, So we are getting smarter about how better to tell our story. But if you have something that you're working on, we want to know. You don't have to tell us the budget. You don't have to tell us when it's shooting. You don't have to give away trade secrets. But the more we know, the better we can help you. And then, this is my favorite, contact your legislators. Who in the room, I ask this question every time I speak publicly, who knows their legislator? Who actually knows? Everyone? Okay. It's so important because they need to know about the important impact of the jobs and dollars of our industry. If they don't, why would they invest more in us, right? That's the crux of the issue. They want to hear from you. If they are your representatives, they want to hear from you. So that's basically the overview. We are not publishing this quite yet. It's like 22 pages. And we are still wordsmithing it and still dotting I's and crossing T's, but this is the sneak peek, and I'd love to answer questions. Yeah?
So you said that Washington Filmworks is sunsetting in 2017. What's that? Can you expand?
Sure. So Washington Filmworks is legislatively commissioned. That's how we get the $3.5 million a year for the incentive program. When we were renewed in 2011, we were renewed for 5 years. And so as we move forward and through this process, eventually we're going to have to go back to the legislature and ask them to re-up the program.
Is there anything that everybody can do to make sure that happens when that time comes up?
Again, I think that legislators want to hear your positive stories about the film industry, whether that is incentive or non-incentive related. If we at Washington Filmworks have, helped you find a permit for something that you were able to film, that is valuable, right? Any positive feedback about the industry is great, right? If you have not positive feedback, my email address is amy@washingtonfilmworks.org. No. But no, it's important, and it is intimidating, I think. I remember when I first started the show, it's intimidating to go down and be like, hey, listen, I'm a constituent and I'm important, but they want to hear from you, right? The great news is that when we passed in 2011, we had great support, right? But it's reminding those folks about why they support us and why we're important. Jobs and dollars, right? How do we create our careers?
Can through, if you were to contact a legislator, would that be through an email and you just say, hey, look, I work in the industry, I'm an actor, I'm a director, I'm working on things, this is my livelihood, this is how I support my family. What kind of format would you send something in and contact them to be in their face with it?
So, legislators like to know, the positive feedback. We are filming in your jurisdiction. It's been very film friendly. We're employing X amount of people. We are spending X amount in your economy. The interesting thing is legislators have such a challenging job because they have to know so much about so many things. But, we have a film shooting right now in Everett, and we've had such a wonderful experience there because, we had the Holiday Inn up there call us and say, like, how do we get more of this, right? So legislators don't function in our world on a daily basis. So start at the base level. We spend this much in the economy. We employ this many people. We're spending money at this local diner, this hotel, and we're renting this office space. Like, those are things like the basic level, they're so, legislators are so, I don't envy their job, right? But we, as an industry, can help educate them and break it down in a very kind of fundamental level, if that makes sense. Yes?
Hi, I'm pretty new in this thing. I'm just learning how to make movies. But I was wondering if I would like to make a movie, if someone would like to make movies around the world on social issues, like I want to make movies about social issues in India and in rural part in India. So still does the Washington Filmworks help or support them, or it's just in Washington movies?
Well, I would say that, sure, so his question is about, he wants to make films, largely documentaries about other places other than Washington, and what resources do we have at our fingertips to help. Mm-hmm. Well, that is like a big breadbasket for us. So, we have so many partners in the community, like the Northwest Film Forum, which I know, for example, does grants for documentary films. We consider ourselves a clearinghouse of resources. How can we help filmmakers find the things that they need to make their projects? So we can direct you to financial resources, grants and that kind of thing. The incentive program specifically is more geared towards projects that are shot in Washington State or filmmakers from Washington State that are shooting here. But that doesn't, mean to say that we don't have other resources that are valuable. For Culture gives film grants. There's fiscal sponsorship opportunities. We have all the post-production houses in town. So there are many resources that we know about. The incentive is only one of them.
I'm on the other end of the scale. I have an incredible story to tell for somebody to tell us. I'm looking for a producer to hear the stories. Can I come to you and find a list of film producers that I can approach to?
So the question is, I have a story to tell. How do I connect with the people that I want to connect with? I mean, this is a wonderful venue. We love this monthly event. That's one way, certainly. Filmworks in general has historical information about a crew list from different projects, so we can help that way as well. We've created this wonderful jobs database where we can pull, names and people from every production, incentive production. So yes, you can contact us. I would say that if you look around this room, there's wild talent in the room. I would also say, grab a drink after this and talk to people, or I'm happy to, Chris Swenson from the city who is here, and my job here is to introduce people like you to the people that they want to meet, and lots of business actually happens here. 1 second. Jesse Wilson, Chris Walters, Chris Carnes, Becky Bogard from our board, and Ken. These are all the folks that help me do this and tell your story. They're an incredibly dedicated, wonderful, hardworking group of people that I get the absolute pleasure to work with every day. So thanks to them. So Jesse's responsible for the graphs. Other questions? Yeah.
You had mentioned something earlier about partnering with, I think it was the city of Seattle, to make Seattle a more appealing place for shooting commercials. Can you give us a little more insight about the things you were hoping to do to make that happen?
Sure, it's a two-tiered approach. We're not talking about it publicly very much because we're still developing it, but it's a two-tiered approach. One is, how do we use the incentive dollars specifically to draw in production companies and ad agencies that aren't working here right now? And then secondarily, it's a big marketing campaign. One of the things that I love about commercials is we can use unlike the feature film world where everything is, reliant upon the availability of incentives. The incentives in the commercial world are a tool, right? We can lure them here with that, but it's not necessarily that decision is based on the availability of incentives. So there's a marketing campaign as Seattle, specifically Washington in general, is a great place to shoot commercials, and we like working on them, and here's why. And then secondarily, how do we, Washington Filmworks and the board at Washington Filmworks, use those incentive dollars to really lure people who aren't working here now? We're going to roll this out. I'm sure we're actually going to plan to have an event around it. But it's a wonderful partnership between the city, Washington Filmworks, and the private sector, because we have a lot of private sector buy-in and help with this initiative. So I feel like it's a real success, and we're going to roll it out in the summer.
Eugene, what's the rebate on commercials?
The rebate on commercials? So our standard rate is 30% return on qualified in-state spend. It's 15% for commercials at this point. That's going to change, though. The Mazzolas are on our advisory board. So, again, like our job at Filmworks is how do we use those incentive dollars to make us really competitive and a really interesting place to shoot. And we've gotten some wonderful, smart advice from some really smart people. So, Ben Adams.
I'm curious if there's a threshold of what you want to hear about. And for example, I get approached all the time by filmmakers who are at the 5,000 or below budget. They're new, I come from those ranks where they never even think about talking to you guys because their budgets are so low. But I'm interpreting that we have a story that we need to tell, and every dollar spent, we need to know about it. Should I be encouraging these people, no matter what their budget is, just at least get on your radar, give you guys a call, and just at least tell you what they're doing?
Yes. So Ben's question is, do we want to know about everyone and everything? And yes, we do. I mean, the job survey was illuminating to us because we learned a ton. A lot of you spend your time in a creative industry in a full-time job and do film on the side, right? That's valuable information for us to have. And, the other thing is, I love this statistic that we had 270 people call the office, just like, I want to film in Washington, how do I do it, right? And this is only the things that we know. And then 22% of those converted to real business that we know of, right? There are other things that we don't know of. That's $2 million that nobody sees, right? So if it's 5,000, if it's 10,000, if it's 15,000, it's an aggregate number that's powerful that helps us tell our story. Political ads, they'll spend $35,000, $50,000, right? I'm not going to mention who they are, but they'll spend that kind of money. And you know what? That's valuable because what it does is it gives us the power of, you think that we're just the incentive, but we're so much more. And here's why that's important. So yes, we want to know. Yes.
So this audience is a bit of a choir, so to speak. How do you get this message to the man on the street? It would be great if your budget was larger than it currently is. How do you communicate to the man down the street that the film industry adds such value to our local economy? We all get that. But there seems to be a bit of a disconnect in that here's this business, it's coming in, it's moving in, We're building stuff, we're hiring people, and then we're going home or going away. You know, it's like the old Emmett Watson kind of thing, if you're old enough to know that approach. And that's the beauty of the film industry with these out-of-town folks. How do we get that message to people that aren't in this room, that aren't tied to the film industry, that don't really care, but they wonder why other services aren't being provided? Because there's a lack of those tax dollars, when tax dollars can come in because this industry is providing that tax revenue. How do we get that message out?
There's so many ways. So a couple of different things are going to happen with this report. One is it's going to go to every legislator. Two, I go on the road.
I'm not talking about the I'm sorry, I'm a little cranky because I get the legislator part. I get that. That's valid. We need to know who our legislators are. But I'm talking about the man walking down the street that is the one that's going to put pressure on that legislator because they understand the value is bringing those dollars in.
So I'm going to say several things. There's like a 5-tier, I get cranky all the time. So there's so many things, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to push that right back on you, right? Because that is our responsibility as a community. What we're going to do as an organization, because we work with and work for you, is we're going to give you the tools to help tell our story. We have our own rollout plan, right, that we will do, but we will also equip this industry with a 2-pager that you can use however you want. You know, this industry has to tell its story better. We're going to give you the tools to do that. You know, in addition, it's going to legislators, it's going to economic development councils, it's going to the press. You know, it is a massive push to tell our story better. You know, it'll go to the industry. Who's on our newsletter list? Really? Seriously? We work for you. You know that, right? WashingtonFilmworks.org, upper right-hand side. But, you know, it's interesting. During the renewal of the incentive, I was super proud of this industry. Not to say I'm not proud of you now, because I am. But there was this massive movement that we gave this industry talking points, and y'all got down to business. I mean, it was amazing to watch. There were Facebook pages, and there was a film leadership network, and there was all of these things happening. It is just as much our responsibility as it is this industry's responsibility, and I don't want to discount that. We're going to give you the tools, but you have to start telling your story just as much as we tell your story for you. How about that? I'm cranky now. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. Happy to dialogue with you about that later.
Yeah, I guess where I'm coming from I'm not a film guy. I'm a red tag music guy, but I understand the value of this business coming in, hiring people, wages, all of that. And somehow, if you're not in the industry, you're not dialed in, you kind of miss the value. Unless you happen upon a commercial being filmed or a movie or whatever, you don't really understand the incredible economic impact. And I have to be honest, somehow we're missing the boat there. And I don't know how to address it. It's not my role to address it. But it's a confusing thing because other states are doing it, and I'm not laying blame on you. I mean it's an issue. You know, you look at you've thrown all your economic numbers up there. They could be 4 times what they are now if people realize that this is good, clean money, doesn't require infrastructure. They come in, they have their teams, they have their caterers, they have their local people, and then they go home.
So I definitely appreciate that. I think that nobody's telling that story, right? So this is the first annual report, right, where we're starting to tell the story. And if you look at the sections and the way that we've broken it down, it's very palatable, and it starts to tell this story. But our story is a big story. You know, we're going to break it down. It's going to get revised. It's going to get better. But, you know, I'm glad you're saying that because we haven't been telling our story as well as we can. And if you walk out of this room tonight and the phrase jobs and dollars doesn't come out of your mouth, then we need to revise. right? That's the point, right? Why is the film industry important? Because we create jobs and dollars. And as we create jobs and dollars, we create value. And as we create value, we get more attention, whether that's legislatively, whether that's from the press, whether that's from our family on Kickstarter, right? It's telling our story better, jobs and dollars. Yes?
Did this questionnaire establish trend lines or forecasts, either for the industry as a whole or particular parts of the industry?
Yes. I mean, the answer is yes. I don't want to dig too much into that, but we are establishing a baseline by which metrics and data can be measured. The board at Washington Filmworks has partnered. The staff has partnered with a wonderful economist that helped us get through the renewal. From Community Attributes International. They're wonderful partners of ours. They understand the creative industry in general from various shapes and forms, and they are helping us create that. And, again, this is the first annual. Like, as we wrote it, next year we intend to roll out a vendor survey for those people that actually employ people in the state. That was something that was missing from this year that was market. How did we not have that, right? It's the first, and it's a baseline, and it'll get better. Who's going to read the 22 pages, though? Because I've read it like 5 times. Other questions? Hope.
When should we keep our eyes peeled for next year's job survey coming out, and where can we find that when it does?
Sign up for our newsletter. No. So our job survey generally comes out WF-W2. As you get your W-2s, that's when we'll send it out. So think January, February. We will always issue, our intention is to issue the report after first quarter every year. So WF-W2, we think it's clever. But sign up on our newsletter, and we beat the drum. Starting in November, we start prepping you for it. So, yes.
Hi, so I work for IndieFlix film distribution company here in Seattle, and I'm wondering what resources are important to know about beyond production, or from anywhere from training filmmakers to the post-production process, marketing, distribution, all of that.
That's a big ball of wax. We love the IndieFlix. I sat on a panel with Sheila Andreen this past weekend. She's wonderful, and if you don't know IndieFlix, you should. It's a Washington-based company that's doing amazing things. There are a ton of resources at our fingertips. We have an online location database that houses thousands and thousands and thousands of photos of, everything across Washington State. We help and partner with Media Inc. to do the crew database. We keep a list of resources on our website. There's so many ways to go at that question. I don't know how, in terms of a programming standpoint, is that the question?
I guess I'm thinking just beyond motion picture production. Is Washington Filmworks, is the state focusing on other aspects of the industry? Is that eventually?
Yes. We have just convened and a committee called the Community Outreach Committee, and our intention is to work with this committee, which is a group of our clients, constituents, and partners that represent all kinds of facets of production, post-production, and resources in the state to do, I feel like I'm getting too bureaucratic, a needs assessment, right? What are we missing? What do we need? How are we doing it? What does this industry need to get to the next level? I hesitate to, that sounds so bureaucratic, and what I take great pride in at Washington Filmworks is that when we say it, we do it, right? So we're saying it. I just said it publicly. No, but we have convened this really bright, wonderful group of people, and we're thinking strategically about what do we need. I have a ton of resources at our fingertips right now, but as we look at Washington Filmworks 2.0 and we talk about the annual report, the job survey, and we're thinking strategically about how do we grow this industry.
Yes. You said that you have it at your fingertips. Are they at your fingertips, or is it on the internet for everyone?
I have nothing at my fingertips, literally. So resources from our office are all accessible via our website. And if you call our office, someone always answers. We actually don't have voicemail, which makes a lot of people really mad. But we don't have voicemail because we like people to answer and respond. But I would direct you first to our website. There is a For Local section, and there's a resource tab. And that would be the first place I would send you. Poke around on there, sign up for the newsletter, you know. And I would start there. If you ever have any issues or questions or, you know, any of that, call our office. Say hi to Chris Walters. She generally answers. Other questions? Okay. Thank you guys for coming. We'll publish it soon.
Thanks again, everybody. Thank you, Amy, for a very compelling presentation. Lots of information to suck in. Amy is always available. Jesse, Chris, and Julie, who's not here, also at Washington Filmworks. Call them anytime to follow up with any questions. Next month's happy hour is June 26th, where we talk about, it's going to be music-focused, making a living in the local music industry. In July, we'll talk about making a living in the film industry, and then we'll follow that up with the commercial film plan that Amy was discussing earlier. Thanks again, everybody. Have a good night.